I'm Michael Eriksson. Everybody called me Mickey. Currently, I live in Buenos Aires in Argentina, but originally I'm from Finland. I was born in Finland. And today I live, as I said, in Buenos Aires in Argentina. And I work as a CEO for Arla Foods Ingredients. And I have 5-6 principles that I always, let's say, work with, which goes also with the way I lead. The first one is, of course, very clearly, as we as Nordic, openness and transparency. This is let's see, this really, let's say, enhance a lot of things in the organization. I mean, already as for me, I mean, I work for a lot of innovation as well. I always pursue innovation. And we all know that innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum, as you said, no, or in the CEO's corner office. It happens down in the organization. That's why it's so important to be open with your agendas. And then also this, what is in other words called nurturing and care. I mean, you have to create this environment where people can, let's say, feel comfortable and speak up and argument. I really always promote this. Freely speak up, come up with argument, counter argument, mistakes to be allowed. This is very important because mistakes is never an end of something. It's always a beginning of something new. We need to act also very, very responsive. You have to act. You have to adapt early to decision making. Well, I think the one I mentioned about this, that the organization, you limit, you cut off the hierarchy much more. Yeah. And you empower your team. And this is very effective. I mean, if you look at the way of working as Nordic, it's very effective if you adapt it well in the new environment. And this is, of course, a challenge for us living in other cultures. That's why it's so important when you come to a new culture that you try to absorb, learn, like a child asking questions, to want to learn everything. You need to learn even after 50 years. You need to start learning things and ask the questions to be able to understand the culture. And we think many times that it's not implementable in other cultures. It is. It's always implementable. I talk also to colleagues in other parts of the world. And of course, there are things that you cannot do. There are cultural differences that you need to take into consideration. Respect. You have some place, you have really so much this hierarchical, let's say, setup that you need to respect. You cannot just surpass somebody that you need to respect. But the Nordic leadership, I mean, it's very authentic, and when well implemented, it's very effective and powerful, and you get again, as I said, high engagement. Yeah, this comes many up, and I mean the consensus is many times, let's say, a knife with a double edge. It's very powerful in Nordic. I've been living in Sweden also, and that was a very big challenge for me, because everything is discussed, and of course in that context it's very effective. But here it's not, because sometimes and maybe also looking at today, when you need fast decisions, consensus can take too long time if not really well mastered. And asking everybody, there is not simply time for that today in today's world. And here in these cultures, people get nervous. So does this guy decide or not? They want you also as a leader. You need to show that you are the one who takes the decisions. Whenever it is, they expect you to take the decisions in this culture. Yeah. Why it's success? Because it involves everybody. And in an organization, because I come back to this innovation. Innovation doesn't happen in the corner office. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in the organization. We are more tolerant to mistakes. this we need to have. We have to have people making mistakes because that is something that makes you create something new. And as I said, it's very effective and authentic. But maybe I could say that the biggest challenge, if we look the recent, this was to change the industry. But looking now, I said that, well, you see that this is possible, and this is actually very important, and I really would encourage people to do it more. Try to change as a leader industry. You get a new picture of things. You see things from a totally other let's say other view, other aspect. This is get experience. This is very important. Don't be afraid of new challenges, and be open and humble. Because when you move to a country, I could now speak, let's say, that because the experience for me is to work in another country, in another culture. Go out for the uncomfortable. Get out of your comfort zone. Well, this is easy said, I know, but this is so true. Go out to the to get new experience, and then when you come to that, be humble, learn, observe, and always, let's say, take seriously advices also, because it's all about learning, and the younger you are, the earlier stage, let's say, the more you have room for experimenting and risking to failure as well. Here at home we speak Finnish and Swedish, so you have them both every day. And then English is the working language that is always on the plate. And Spanish, of course, this is actually I learned so many years living in Latin America. This is the language I'm mostly thinking on. And then Portuguese as well. I was living 6 years in Brazil. I don't know for German, and when I worked in Italy as well, I worked in Germany, in Hamburg for 2 years. That was a very nice time as well. I cannot say that my German and Italian are very fluent, but if I would go there, I would catch them up. But simultaneously, it's 5 languages that I let's say, do daily, more or less.